So, like we talked about, we've each had periods of profitability. Like I said, I just, traded a sample size profitable recently. I also did in the past. I've done it before, in between then, obviously, as well, right? I wouldn't say that I'm a consistently profitable trader at this point yet. I think I'm still working to find consistency as I've chopped and changed my strategy so much. I think personally, you have to be consistent for like a year or two to really like call yourself a consistently profitable trader, right? Haven't even been trading long enough for a long enough, continuous period of amount of time to really say that. But I have traded live profitably, put together good strategies. DeHart has done the same, right? And so with that, I think we could speak to just getting started in terms of like just getting started trading live, right? Like what you need to do to go from not knowing anything about Forex to, and we're not going to teach you all of these things in this moment right now, but we're going to give you that, those steps to go from not knowing anything to putting yourself in the position to put that strategy together to start to trade live eventually, right? And then, like we were saying, once you start trading live, that's when things start to get really fun. We'll see what happens then, but, from A to B at this point, right? So first and foremost, it is kind of what we've been talking about this entire time, is you need to determine, are you mentally prepared / in a good space in your life to begin the process of learning to trade, right? So, DeHart, I wanted to ask you, what were your thoughts about learning to trade while we were in college? How did you feel about that? Because I have my thoughts about it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I was actually going to say the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I didn't really have responsibilities.
Yep.
Like
there it is right there. There it is right there. Responsibilities. Yep.
I was afraid to fail.
Yep. Exactly right. So funny that you say that, because I told you about this. I sat in one of Jason Greystone. He's big in the trading community. Great coach. If you want to look at somebody who's like had a lot of experience in the markets, great coach, good mentor, I would definitely go check out Jason Greystone. A lot of good free stuff on YouTube. I was in one of his masterminds about something else, and he was just talking about this idea of like starting trading, and he was just using it as an example, right? And he said that he was like, honestly, if you're going to start trading, I would say that you start trading in one or two situations in your life. Either when you're in college, right, and you have zero responsibilities, or you've accomplished pretty much every other goal that you wanted, right? So he's like, if you're a business owner and you want to start learning how to trade, I would say start trading after you set up your business, because now you don't have to worry about as much responsibility, right? And like that's exactly what I wanted to call out as well. Us starting to learn in college was the perfect mental state for us to start learning to trade, and I think that really played into why that first period was really successful for me, because that period was during college as well, right? Like there wasn't as much on the line. There wasn't anything on the line. Like I was a broke college student trading for beer money. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't that big of a deal. Like now I'm trying to, not have to work a job that I don't really enjoy. Different stakes, right? Like, and on top of that, not only not work that job, I still have to be able to support myself when I'm not working that job. Different stakes. You know what I mean? I got rent. Different stakes. So I would definitely say determine if you're in a good place and really look at the responsibilities that you have on your plate right now. I would say that's the biggest thing. I think next, after one, go ahead.
I will say though,
yeah.
Not saying that it can't be done
yep.
if you're not in that place. It just makes it exponentially more difficult.
Yep. Because it's going to be all about your mindset, like we've been talking about this whole time. Because again, it's
like if you're starting to learn to trade and you're a single parent,
it's not impossible. It's not that it can't happen, because there are parents who have learned to trade while they were literally supporting their kids. Like literally, one of Austin Silver's like best students is that lady who's a mom. You know what I mean? 2 young ass kids. She learned to trade. Yeah. It's just she'll be the first person to tell you on her Instagram that shit's way harder. You know what I mean? Like she has to be way more disciplined than the average trader. Way more disciplined than the trader who's in college. You know what I mean? So yeah. So then 2, after you determine you're in the right spot, 2 would be developing trading goals. I would say, I want to ask your opinion on this, developing trading goals, and then technical skills to understand what is basically your technical trading philosophy, right? So these are kind of the concepts that you might base your strategy off of, right? So like DeHart mentioned, just trading support and resistance, right? So like I would say, and what I mean by that, like really just set long-term goals in terms of like just learning the skill of technical analysis. You know what I mean? Like even if you might not ever use an indicator, maybe you pick up an indicator or 2 and see what they do. Like that kind of stuff. Kind of what's your thoughts on that?
I would say first find mentors, whether digital or physical, that can teach you sort of these things. So like YouTube's a great thing.
Yeah.
Kill Stokes.
This is what I would.
Jason Gray.
This is what I would push free education right now. At this point, I'm pushing free education. You're not ready for paid education. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just try stuff. Like this is the time to try stuff. And then while you're trying stuff, find your bread and butter.
Yep.
Like for me, I'd say my bread and butter, divergence. I can spot it like that, 2 seconds. I can look at a chart and be like, oh, that's divergent. That's doing this. This is doing that. Something's likely to change, right? Like find your bread. Your bread and butter might be support and resistance. It might be trend lines. It might be channels. It might be reversals. It might, whatever it might be. Like find whatever it is that you spot more often than not, and hone in on that.
Yeah, like me, I gravitated towards being a pullback trader. You know what I mean? And like that's why we say like so my whole focus, literally from when I kind of made that decision, has been based around technical concepts that help me understand when a pullback is coming to an end. You know what I mean? And it might turn around and go the other way, right? Now, obviously, I'm not always correct in that. Sometimes it just keeps going on me. That's the part. That's the whole thing about being a pullback trader. But like D Hart is saying, like find your bread and butter, and that's why we said like you're not really ready for trying to find a trading mentor yet, because it's like from me realizing that I wanted to be a pullback trader, that's when I started to find people like Naveen, right? Because that's kind of what his whole thing is based on. You know what I mean? This idea of finding when that pullback's coming to an end, right? And then that brings me on to number 3. So we got 8 steps for y'all. Number 3, basically, it's just start placing those concepts together, right? So you've learned, maybe you've found the bread and butter. You went out and got a mentor. I would say after you've spent some time just like learning technical analysis concepts. Personally, I took 2 months to just look at shit before paying for any mentorship. But 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is that you're comfortable with, I would say don't take less than a month. That's my personal opinion, because I think anything other than that, you're kind of following this shiny ball. But once you've found that and found a mentor, if they're not giving you a strategy already, right, which is kind of common, but it's also not common at the same time. So you can find a mentor that does that, right? So like ICT, for an example, he's free mentorship, but he doesn't really give you a strategy. Like he gives you a lot of framework for how to put it together, but even he'll tell you like, I'm not trying to give you a strategy. That's not the point of me doing this. The point of me doing this is to teach you a way to find your setup. You know what I mean? Which brings me to point number 3, which is now that you understand yourself and what you've been learning, start understanding your setup, right? Start putting those concepts together to understand what is your setup, right? So like D Hart said, you kind of call it your bread and butter, right? I call it my high probability setups. Now what I define as a high probability setup has changed as I've changed my strategy, but I always have in my strategy this idea of a high probability setup, because that's like D Hart was saying, bread and butter. D Hart, I know you're very much similar with that because you do something that I don't do with my trading, but I think you've been doing it for a while now and continue to do it. I think you know what I'm talking about in terms of grading your trades.
Oh yeah. Grading the setups. Yeah. Because, so the bread and butter. And that's one thing that I got from again Austin Silver, who I would consider one of my earlier mentors, right? Because I wouldn't, like I said before, I wouldn't be where I am today without him. So shout out to Austin. But yeah, grading your setups, perfect way to find your highest probability trades, because if you have 3 types of setups, right? An A setup, a B setup, and a C setup. If your A setups work more often than not, let's say they have a 90% success rate, your B setups are like 70%, and your C setups are like 50%. Obviously, your A setups are your highest probability ones because they work the most often. So that would be your bread and butter. That would be the one that you see that I'd put money that's probably going to work, right? So those are your bread and butter setups. Those are the ones that you would want to put a lot of money behind. Those are the ones that you would want to really focus on and build your strategy around, right? And if they're few and far between, then there you go. You get some variations. You get some B setups. You get some C setups in there. Maybe you want to eliminate C altogether, but you should definitely have multiple setups. Right? Yeah. You should find your bread and butter. find what works for you. Find what is working for your strategy, and then just kill it. Like if you're playing a fighting game and you only know one combo, and that combo is working, just keep doing it. Keep doing it over and over and over and over.
And that kind of brings me to the next point, which is, and this might sound backwards, but I'm gonna explain why we put it this way, and that's gonna be putting repeatable rules around that bread and butter setup. Now, why would I put finding the setup and then putting rules around it? Well, to be honest with you, you don't even realize the rules you're going to need until you start trying to trade something or backtest something. That's the reality of the situation. That is trading. Trading is the ultimate like scientific experiment in terms of like you have a hypothesis and you have to test that hypothesis before you can make any types of data decisions based on that, right? So like you have to test it.
It's just one long game of guess and check.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So you have to find that setup first, and then say to yourself, "Here's how I think it's going to play out." You go out and you test that hypothesis, and then you, like a marketer or like a coder, or I don't know how coders change shit, but like a marketer is a better example, right? They tell you if you're doing a split test on marketing, you only change one element of whatever it is that you're sending out, right? So if you're sending out an ad, right, maybe you only change the headline and then you send it out again. So you know what is changing what, right? You know where the variables are. The same way you would do it with a scientific experiment, right? So that's the one, that's, 4, is place repeatable rules around that and start testing it, right? You want to start, like D. Hart said, and I'm glad D. Hart brought this up when he was talking about grading. I'm a personal believer you need to have at least 2, because you need something, you don't realize how much you're going to be greedy, and you need something where you're going to say to yourself, I can scratch my itch while still following my strategy at a good clip. You know what I mean? It's not great, but it's good, right? So it's like D. Hart was saying, maybe just an A and a B, right? Like that A is, let's say the A is 60% win ratio and the B is 50. 50 is still a good clip. You know what I mean? So it's like, it gives you a way to, honestly, kind of like we were talking about, like, honestly, we were talking about with ego, like feed the beast almost, right? Because trading, it's not going to be perfect. If you're constantly looking for that A setup and looking for things to always be perfect, especially as a newer trader, you're going to be constantly frustrated. You have to be able to appreciate both probabilities and possibilities in the market. When you're open to both, that's when you're most, just free in the market. You know what I mean? Like you don't really care either way, because it's like, oh, okay, well then maybe it's gonna be, or maybe it's a lot easier to deal with things as they come. So I would definitely be a big proponent of having 2. I wouldn't even really call them setups, but like essentially like variations to the setup that makes it right. Yeah. Exactly right. Like a variation that might make it more high probability versus not, right? Maybe you're trading the exact same thing, right? Because that's how I do it now. I trade the exact same thing, but it's like, if this thing, which I'll call out just very quickly, it has to do with volume. If this thing is there, that's great. You know what I mean? If not, then I'll still trade, but
just understand it's less likely.
Right. Yeah. There's a reason for my testing that I've seen. Oh, because this and that, and all that good stuff, right? So that brings us to next is where we're going to be, like we were talking about, loosely testing these things, right? So pretty simple. Where I say loosely testing, I mean loosely testing, and I mean don't use a bunch of hindsight bias because you want to get accurate data. What I mean by that is understand that it's not going to be the end, right? And understand that this first round of testing, I call it loose testing because you're likely going to change something from that first round of testing. You know what I mean? Even after you go through all this stuff.
I almost guarantee that you're
going to change. Even if you go through all this stuff to put some stuff together and all this kind of stuff, you put these rules and this rules and these rules, when you finally officially test something, you're going to be like, oh shit, okay, actually maybe I should tweak this or tweak that. Or maybe you go ask a trading friend, like, what do you think I should tweak, right? Like that's the best part about having a community around you, right? So that's why I say loosely test, right? And then we come back and we solidify those rules again. This is step 6. So we're going to come back and solidify those rules that we loosely tested and we got those variations from. Right, and we decide on something that we decide on one thing from those variations for solid rules, and then from here I want you to do quote unquote hard testing, right? So this is, when I say hard testing, this is like official stuff, right? So at least it depends. I'm not going to tell you how much data to get in terms of like a year, a month, whatever, because, for example, I trade a 1 minute strategy and a month's worth of data is 25 trades. You know what I mean? So I could literally get 4 months worth of data and that's 100 trades, and I haven't even traded the entire year. So I'm not going to tell you how much data to get in terms of, year.
Also, if you're on TradingView, it might not go back that far.
Yeah.
If you're on the 1 minute, you might.
Yeah.
There's only a limited amount of 1 minute candles that they
Yeah.
have.
So what I would say is try to get like just 100 trades. So exactly like D Hart is saying. For example, I was just testing something on the 1 minute, and I was only able to get up to 50 trades. Getting to the new, getting to where we are now, right? Because of exactly like D Hart is saying, it only goes back so far, right? You can pay more for TradingView to get it to go back farther, but I don't got it like that right now. So yeah. That being said, so you can basically test that, but I want you to test for at least 100 trades and at least 3 different instruments. Okay, like that's my personal opinion, because 3 different instruments gives you a big enough. And to be honest, here's the big kicker: they don't all have to go well. They just need to be profitable. That is the way that I believe, because you could trade something and use that as a decision to never trade that, like backtest something and use that as a decision to never actually trade that thing, as I've done many, many times. I have literally only backtested something to prove to myself that my strategy works in different markets and different securities, and then from that backtesting session made that decision right then and there that I would never touch it. Because it's profitable, it makes money, but it doesn't hit my trading goals, which is why I said first and foremost, get your trading goals in order. You know what I mean? Because one thing I had to recognize about myself is I like to win more than I like to lose. So one of my trading goals is my strategy needs to win more than it loses. It's that simple. If I get the expectancy that's not saying that it's winning more than it's losing, I toss that shit out. Doesn't mean it's not profitable.
Even if it's profitable.
Because it's not about it being profitable. It's about me being able to trade it profitably. It's that simple. And I know that if it's not returning more wins than losses, I'm not going to be able to trade it profitably, because I'm going to be worried about that. So I toss it out, even though it's profitable, So yeah. And then we're getting into the fun stuff, the last 2 things we're going to have, right? So first and foremost, we're getting into trading live now, right? So I want you to trade live for at least 25 trade sample size, right? But this is on a demo account or insignificant amount of money. Right, that's why I said we're possibly getting into trading live now. Now, I appreciate not everybody's going to appreciate a demo account, but do not risk real money that you would feel upset about losing when you're first getting started. That's the stupidest thing you can do, and that's the easiest way you can mess up your learning curve. The only reason I'm still in the game right now is because I haven't blown an account. And there's so many people who have I know people who have fought through that, and mazel's to them. But even they will tell you, bro, they've got some scars from it, they wish they would have kind of just taken it slower and slowed the fuck down and not risked as much money at the beginning, right? So when you're first getting started, this first sample size trading in the live market has to be on a demo account. If it's not on a demo account, man, I want you risking a penny, or some shit, you know what I mean? I might be exaggerating, but you get what I'm saying. Risk something super insignificant. You know what I mean? So you can just practice learning. And learning, here's the biggest thing that you're going to learn. You're not only going to learn about the strategy, but you're going to learn about yourself and where you fuck up the strategy. And that's the biggest thing that you need to learn, because those are the most important rules to put in the strategy. And that brings me to our last step 8. After you've traded that first sample size live, and you now know the mistakes you've made, you need to keep a journal while you're trading live at all times. And that goes without saying, but keep a journal at all times. Journal your mistakes, all the good stuff, right? Once you understand the mistakes that you're making and the ways that your strategy isn't doing what you would expect it to do in a live market, or this thing isn't happening as you would think would happen, right? So a good example is time that you have to enter into the market, right? So like I said, I trade on 1 minute strategy, and that was a big thing that I had to recognize when I actually started trading live. Oh, wow. 1 minute when I'm backtesting is way different than 1 minute trading live, where I'm trying to put a fucking trade on. Obviously that sounds basic, but it's a learning curve, right? So you have to learn these types of things as well. What do I do when I'm rushed? When I'm rushed, I fat finger entries. So I need to make sure that I'm as methodical and focused with my entries as possible, right? With something that I can put in my strategy to make sure that I did that. Checks, questions, or maybe what do I do when I'm rushed? Maybe I skip a part of my strategy. So what can I do with that? I can put something in my strategy where I run through a list of questions before I enter the market, right? All these kind of things. I'm not going to be able to know if these things will even be possible or feasible if I haven't been trading live. You know what I mean? If I hadn't traded that first 25 trade sample size. So again, like I said, that brings me to 8, which is literally just once you've traded that sample size and you have that data from that sample size in terms of the psychological and technical mistakes that you were making, make a plan to improve, and we come back again and trade again. And there you go. That's trading live. That's it. Yeah. So, do you have anything you want to add there? End off?
No. Honestly, it's like you said, like if you have a profitable strategy, as long as you trade it with no mistakes, you will make money.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
And you'll make a mistake.
So,
you'll make a mistake. But as long as you work your ass off to minimize your mistakes at every single turn,
yeah.
and you have a profitable strategy, that's it. That's really it. Because exactly like D-Hart was saying, so I'm trading last sample size I was just trading, I get to trade 23, right? And I make a mistake. Now, the strategy's profitable. I'm already at trade 23, so it's not that big of a deal, right? So I was just able to tell myself, look, calm down, turn around, and keep trading. And then, like I was saying, I made a mistake, but I was still profitable. But it was one mistake. I didn't make 25 mistakes. You know what I mean? You can't expect to make a mistake on every single trade and still be profitable. So yeah.
If you make a mistake on every single trade, bro, you're in the wrong field. You should not, you need to do something else or seriously evaluate why you're making mistakes. Because if you make 25 mistakes in a 25 trade sample size, that's a fucking problem.
That's a way to end it off. That's a cheery way to end it off. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, man, and I hope it provided some value to you guys. Please join us again next time. Thank you.